Welcome to the Sisters in Crime Writers Podcast. Everyone has a unique writing journey, so join us for conversations about those journeys from the writers themselves. This is Julie Henriquez, the Executive Director of Sisters in Crime, and I'm honored to have Raquel V. Reyes on the podcast this week. Raquel writes Latina protagonists. Her Cuban-American heritage, Miami, and Spanglish feature prominently in her work. Mango, Mambo, and Murder, the first in her Caribbean Kitchen mystery series, won a LEFTY Award for Best Humorous Mystery. It's in production to become the TV series Miami Spice. Her work has been nominated for Agatha and Anthony Awards and has won an International Latino Book Award Gold Medal. Raquel's short stories appear in various anthologies, including the Best American Mystery and Suspense 2022. Her leadership experience is varied and extensive. She's been a volunteer coordinator at an AIDS service organization and a worship coordinator at her Unitarian Universalist Congregation. She's served on the Mystery Writers of America National Board, done 2 terms on the MWA-Florida Chapter Board, been on the Guppies Steering Committee, and was a co-chair of the Writing Craft Conference SleuthFest for 5 years. Raquel values inclusion, equity, and education. Raquel is also the incoming president of Sisters in Crime for the 2025-2026 term. Raquel, thank you so much for this conversation and for serving.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am a big fan of Sisters in Crime. And I think I shared this with you the other day. I was recently looking for a password and I ran across my password from 2005, my Sisters in Crime password from 2005. I was such a baby writer then. I joined Sisters in Crime Guppies just to, figure it all out. So yeah, I've been with Sisters in Crime on and off for 20 years, and here I am, the incoming president. I mean, I love it.
I love that you've been a member for that long, and that, talk to me about joining back then, because, had you written a book? Were you thinking about writing a book? Where were you on the journey?
Oh, absolutely. So I've been a writer all my life. I was a poet. I mean, I've told the story many times. There is a elementary school yearbook out there, and I'm holding a creative writing prize because I won something. I remember in high school, I was lucky enough to have a scholarship to preparatory school. And I was in the honors and AP classes, and they really focused on not only critique, but also on short story writing. So I got to have that experience early. And then I went into theater and I worked on playwriting and so forth. So it was always there. But those things are very different than writing a novel. A novel is like an Appalachian Trail that you do in one time, sometimes people take a lifetime to complete the Appalachian Trail, right? So, yeah. So when I joined, I was like, well, I loved cozies, right? That's mostly what I read. And I say traditional too, because I was a big Elizabeth Peters fan, in that line. So I knew what I liked, and I didn't see someone like me represented in there. I knew that I could write. I knew that I had a voice. I said, okay, now how do I do this? What are the mechanics of it? How do you get an agent? So what if you can write it? What do you do with it then? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I probably have undiagnosed dyslexia or something else. I had to have an editor. That was a given, I can read a sentence 5 times and still miss the error. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we love spell check and Grammarly and everything, but it does not replace an editor by any means. So anyway, so I joined Sisters in Crime so that I could be a member of Guppies. And wow, Guppies, the great unpublished, really met some wonderful people there, got such great advice. And then it so happened that I guess there was a SleuthFest in Miami, and I had just been a member, and on the boards, the Guppy says, "Oh, we're all going to meet up." And so I got to meet Guppies in real life, and that was lovely. And, I mean, I remember starting out, I'm sure I had manuscript swaps. I'm sure I got advice. I'm sure I had, unofficial mentors who, kind of helped you, guide you along the way. Yeah. I mean, it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Well, and now 20 years later, how many books in your
So it's 4 books in the series. And then I don't know how many anthologies I'm in. I'm not as many as Barb, but I'm in a few, maybe 5 or 6 anthologies.
And I've said this before on the podcast, and I will say it again. Because you write novels does not mean that you can write short stories and vice versa. I mean, they are two completely different skill sets. So the fact that you do both is amazing as well. And do you have a preference over writing one or the other?
No, they're just very different beasts completely. I love it. I love a short story because it ends quickly. Like I said, I'm a very slow writer. Novels are a ultra marathon, and I really wish they were shorter. I wish they were novellas. Like that. I can do that. That word count I can do. I love the bite size of it, and I also enjoy reading that. And especially and here's this advice: if you're in a reading slump, grab an anthology. So many different voices, so many different types of stories. You're going to finish it in one sitting. You don't have to make that huge commitment, right. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons to love short stories.
Yeah, and you also don't have to, if you're going through something in your life and your attention span is not there, a short story is 5,000 words or less. So it's not going to require you to remember a lot. It's kind of a gift. The novella length, I know so many writers who that's their sweet spot. Like if I could write 30 to 35,000 words and make that what it is, it probably doesn't make any financial success for publishers, but there's so many people who would just write forever if they could write that length. You also, have run SleuthFest, that you mentor, you teach. Talk to me about how you've developed and continue to develop as a writer in these 20 years.
Yeah, I have to say that the most rewarding part of being this far along is to be able to give back. I just recently did for Right Now, which is the Desert Sleuth chapter. I just did the presentation for their one-day conference, and it was just wonderful. I mean, to be able to give it was called a pep talk. I gave everybody a pep talk. Don't worry, you can do it. Keep with it. I gave them a lot of examples from other authors of their path to publishing. Some of them it was 3 years, some of them it was 20 years, and all the various stories between theirs. I love to give those stories to authors who are just starting out, to writers who are just starting out, because you need that inspiration and you need that hope and you need someone to pat you on the back and say, keep going. Because it is. I mean, when I got my contract for the Caribbean Kitchen Mystery Series, it was because of networking. It was because I had met someone at a conference. I met my editor at a conference. I didn't want to pitch her. I pitched her. Then 2 years later, what happened to that story? Blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so, my debut year was really spectacular and it within reason, spectacular for a cozy. I was really happy. I got some great reviews, starred reviews, all these other things. But I would say that, I'm a 15-year overnight success.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to let other writers know that, you make your own luck and you just have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep, improving, Yeah.
Well, and you'd worked in theater, you understand the roller coaster ride of this. It's not like you be a lawyer and you become a partner in the firm and you're a partner in the firm and that's it. It's like, okay, this is going and then this is a sideways and oops, we're doing a loop. And, I mean, it's a ride. It's not
It is.
constant ride.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Tighten up your seatbelt for sure.
Well, and that's the publishing part. The writing part is also a journey because you push yourself, you try something else, you think about things. I mean, it's a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My series has 4 books in it. I didn't offer my publisher a book 5 and 6, and they didn't ask for 5 and 6, and I'm okay with that. I'm really happy about where it is. Could I write a 5 and 6? Absolutely. Once you're in a series, you kind of already have all the storylines in your head. But it gave me a chance to experiment on other things. There's a couple of other things I wanted to write. I said, hey, I kind of think maybe I want to write a domestic suspense. So, I don't know. I wrote about 5,000, 10,000 words in that, threw it over to my agent. I said, hey, can you check my voice on this? I don't think my voice is right. This is what I want to write.
Right.
I don't know if the tension is there. And she came back and she says, storyline's great, whatever, but you're right, it's still a little on the light side. And I just know that about my voice. My voice is going to have a slight bit of humor to it. I mean, it's not necessarily slapstick and fall down and, one-liners, but there's going to be a little bit of humor in there. A little, I like a little tongue in cheek. I like a little, it's just how I am. So, does that mean I'm never going to write a domestic suspense? No. But right. I may have to do a lot more, invest more in learning about that so I can shift my natural voice into something a little darker.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I had the same experience with middle grade. I wrote a middle grade story and love it. It was going to be a series, and my voice is just slightly older, right? So my voice is what they call upper middle grade, and there's not necessarily a market right now for upper middle grade. And talk about middle grade forever. I love middle grade, but in publishing, talk about the roller coaster publishing. So many middle grade presses, publishers have closed. Which is a shame, but being a Latina and wanting to write Latinx characters, middle grade was really open and a fertile ground for that. And I've talked about this before, crime fiction and mystery, it's so much better than it was, but still I can tell you, at least for Latinx writers, we don't have enough representation. I jumped over to Frankie's List, which is a list of authors who write in the crime fiction mystery genre. They're self-reporting, a lot of them. There's a way to get on there. But anyhow, I looked at that there, and just for people to know, I mean, you're Black or of African diaspora, you're a Hispanic, Latinx, Latin, disabled writers, learning disability. When we say diverse, it covers a wide range. So I looked up the Latinx writers, and there were only 38. 38. Yeah, my name was on there, and authors that the one or two authors that I, read when I was coming up are on there. So there's not a whole bunch in between or now. And just for factoid information, in 2023, the Hispanic population of the United States was over 65 million. That's 19.5%, right? Yeah. So there's a disparage there, right? And we are recording this during Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September 15th to October 15th every year. And another fun fact, this started with Lyndon B. Johnson, of all people, had the first Hispanic Heritage Week. It was a celebration and it was a week. And then this blows my brain. Ronald Reagan was the one who made it a month-long celebration. Wow. And it's a month-long celebration because it has 8 different Independence Days in it from 8 different countries in Latin America and Central America. And it's a celebration of resistance and resilience. And I just think about that, like what can I do to invite writers into crime fiction and the mystery genre who are Latinx, Latin, Hispanic, identify as that, if they're not seeing themselves there, right? Come on over. I mean, yes, I'm a member of Crime Writers of Color, and yes, quite a few writers in there who maybe aren't yet published yet, and so maybe we can grow that list on Frankie's list in the next couple of years. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I think about often, especially since I have the privilege of being the incoming president of Sisters in Crime. Is what can I do to open a door for someone?
Well, Raquel, I think you brought up, I've been taking notes, but you brought up so many great, but let's talk about this specific conversation because I think it's such an important conversation. The importance of people seeing themselves in what they read, the importance of children seeing themselves or seeing their family in what they read. And it could just be an acknowledgement, like just something about it that makes them realize I'm not alone.
Right.
I'm like other people, but I'm also like this character, I don't think we can undervalue that for kids, which is why writing that middle grade is so important. But also for readers, for readers who are Latinx to read a protagonist who they understand the worldview immediately, but also for other people to read a protagonist who has a different worldview so that you can explore. I mean, there's only good things about this.
And that's the thing, protagonist, not the victim, not the the culprit, not the criminal, right? Not the villain of the story. Let's have them be the hero of the story. Let's have them be the protagonist. Let's the amateur sleuth, the detective. That's one of the reasons it was so important for me to have my main character in the Caribbean Kitchen Mystery series. She's a PhD. It was just really, really important. I mean, probably because I certainly wanted to go and get more degrees in my life. But there's all kinds of barriers to that we don't necessarily have to get into right now. But that aspirational part of it, here is this anthropologist, and yes, you put a doctor in front of her name out of respect, So yeah, for sure. Not that every character has to be that level of titled and success, but it is super important that that we have heroes and we have smart characters solving things and being the captains of their ship and righting wrongs and sometimes doing the work that we know the police aren't doing or the justice system isn't doing, right?
Right. Or they have a different perception of the world that is more useful for some conversations. Absolutely. And what I love about about this conversation, and what I love about the every fifth challenge that Sisters in Crime and queer crime writers and crime writers of color, what we're all looking at is every fifth book reads something different, right? Yep. But it's because it's fun and it's interesting, and everybody's complicated. There's, you can have, somebody who's middle-aged white woman from New England, but also has this experience, has that experience, and whatever. It's like nothing.
Intersectionality, once you understand what intersectionality is, it changes the lens in which you look at everything.
Yeah.
And I think we get that only from having interactions with people. And I will say sometimes interactions are reading fiction. Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes reading fiction is the thing that shifts something in your thinking and then allows that door to open so that you can encounter someone who is different from you, but alike in some other way. Right?
Right.
Because we're not singular, right? No one is just, rarely. Rarely is one person only one, very, very limited in their worldview and what they've experienced. Most of the time, we have so many different things that come into the mix, right?
I agreed. You also mentioned, I think that this is always worth highlighting, that we're it's gotten so much better than it was 10 years ago. But that doesn't mean it can't still get better. And that also, we want this to not be a flash of the pan or a trend. We want this to be consistent. We want this to be keep moving. And the only way to do that is to embrace and to support, especially marginalized voices. But I also, and this is anecdotal, but sometimes publishers or agents will say, "Oh, I got my Latina protagonist on our list, so we don't we don't need another one. We don't need to." So it's like representation of certain marginalized voices can be like, "Oh, we've got that one person on our list, and what we need to do is blow the list up to say we've got to there's room for everybody because there's all different ways of being published." And we can't limit who can be included. It's not pie. It's like there's room for everybody.
I'm a big believer there is room for everybody. I mean, there's a book for everyone. There's a publishing path for everyone who wants to be published. And that was actually in this presentation, this pep talk that I did the other day. I talked about being self-reflective as to what you want from your publishing career. So that was the first part of my presentation, was about planning. And so sure, you need to sit down and write that novel because it's burning you up inside. Absolutely. And then after that, you need to ask yourself and be honest with yourself what it is you want from your writing career, right? So, do you want to write? Do you want that six-figure career? Do you want your picture on the Times Square Jumbotron? Your book cover on that? Or do you want to go on book tours and go to every single library and meet readers face to face? Do you want, there's all levels of all of those things, and all of those paths are valid. And I know for me, when I thought about it for myself, for me, it was very important to have the representation. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I was writing, was I needed there to be that representation there. I have Spanglish in my books because I want to normalize that. I live in Miami, but I think any big city, and honestly, most larger towns in the United States have multiple languages in them. Now, we can talk about Europe and Canada, and we can talk about the rest of the Americas. They're far beyond us in regards to language. And Sisters in Crime is a worldwide organization, right? So I know if you're listening over there in France or Scotland, or you're listening down there in Honduras, I'm not excluding you, but I do want to talk about, since my publisher is American, that I write for American publication, that's where most of my books are going to be available. I wanted Spanglish in there because I wanted to normalize that. Mm-hmm. Everywhere else in the world, it is completely normal to speak of many languages, right? It shouldn't alarm you to hear a language that you don't understand. For me, it always perks my ears up and go, huh? What is that? Oh, okay. That's right. French. Oh, that's Russian. Oh, right. That's Greek. Or wait, I don't know what language that is, but I think I can guess the area it's from, right? Yeah. Yeah. So back to my writing career. That was one of my missions and one of my goals, right? Was to have that representation, to have that out there in the world, hoping if somebody comes across it, how does that change their life? One, if you are reflected in there, then yay, I've done my job, that you're getting to see yourself back. But two, if it reminds you of a neighbor, great. Oh, you've never encountered this ever in your life, well, great. Here's a way to encounter it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, yeah. Absolutely. I want to go back to one thing you said earlier about being a writer that I think is also incredibly important for people to hear as we're talking about writing journeys, is you sent your 10,000 words of this book that you really, you're interested in writing to your agent and said, how's this working? And got feedback and said to yourself, okay, I got to figure this out. I got work to do to be able to do what I want to do. The ability to take that and send it to an agent and then take that feedback and self-assess and say, I'm not ready to write this book yet. I will be, but I got to figure some stuff out first, is really hard, Raquel. It's really hard not to double down and say, I'm going to figure this out. Or
yeah. I have advice for folks. One, one of my advice is, and again, I gave it at this presentation, I'll give it to anybody else all the time. It's going to be the same advice every time I give it. Wait 24 hours before you respond to any criticism or critique or anybody's opinion. Just wait 24 hours. One, that's part of being a professional, right? Is not to just lash out and say, you don't know what you're talking about. This is the best thing ever written, right?
What's the matter with you?
What's the matter with you? Two, the other part is there might be some valid information that you've received back from that person. Now, it could be completely awful. Like I also say, everybody has an opinion. Learn to discern, right? Find out if it's of value to you. But you can't do that in the heat of the moment. You have to give yourself a cooling off period and go, okay. Because I'll be honest, when I sent that and my agent came back and she's like, yeah, it's too light. I was like, too light? What do you mean? There's not a single joke in there. Take that deep breath. I was like, there's no slapstick. There's no double. Okay, maybe there was double entendre. And so I had to sit with it and say, okay, I do see what she's talking about. And I had to be honest with myself. Am I going to enjoy writing something that I have to quiet that part of my voice? Because I'm a slow writer. It takes me a year. Now, at the end of my year, it is a very polished manuscript. I edit as I go. It's not a first draft, second draft. It's an as-you-go process, right? A very slow process, right? So I'm committing a year to something. For me to commit a year to it, I have to have something enjoyable come back to me.
Yes.
Okay? Because sitting in a chair without the sun shining on my face and the fresh air wafting by, man, it's work. Yeah. I mean, come on, it's work. So there has to be something enjoyable about it.
Yes.
And so that was the question I asked myself. I liked this story. I was excited about the story. I was excited about the characters. I was excited about the setting. Okay. And I wanted to write a domestic suspense because I know a domestic suspense is going to get me a little bit more of an advance than what I write as in my cozy series, right? So lots of reasons for wanting to do it. But then I had to also ask myself, am I going to enjoy writing it if I have to quiet that part of me, that part of my voice?
Yeah.
And so I close the file. It's sitting there. I can go back to it at some other point, and that's fine. I haven't washed my hands of it, but I also said, well, that was 10,000 words well spent.
Yeah.
What did I learn?
Yeah.
And now let me move on to another project.
So tell me more about this process of yours where you edit where you go. I find that fascinating. You don't write a rough draft, a first draft.
No. No, not. But see, it goes back to my thing of liking a short story. I don't like to mess around with things. I like to get the job done. I don't like to go muddy around in it. So when I was in college, I guess, I waited tables. And I loved waiting tables. One, it was cash in hand, and I would just travel on that money, and it was great. But that's a whole nother story. And I also put out my own literary magazine with the money I earned from tips. But that's another story. But the thing I liked about the actual work of it was you had an intense engagement with something, and then they were gone. It didn't last forever. And I think it's the same in theater. I was a director. Once my job is done as a director, it is out of my hands. It belongs to the actors and the audience. I'm not going in and meddling more.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, sure, I might tell, the stage manager, hey, what happened? Why'd they miss that cue? But you're not messing with it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I think that is the same thing on the novel side, right? I'm writing The next day I come back, I look over it. Okay, if I want to change something, I change something then, but then I move forward and I keep moving forward and I keep moving forward. I'm being so thoughtful when I'm writing that I'm planning all of the next steps ahead, that I don't have too many plot holes. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times when people are writing a first draft and they're writing so quickly and it's just everything out on the page, you aren't plotting as you're going necessarily. I'm doing all the moving pieces as I'm going along. And that's the reason why it's a slower process. Now, I mean, I love the stories of people say, I'm on deadline, and they tell everybody in their world not to bother them. And they go into their room and they close the door and they write like crazy for 30 hours. And then they come out and their hair is a mess. And, their eyes are wide from all the caffeine. And I'm like, wow, what would it be like if I could do that? That would be so great. They're like, I wrote 50K in 30 hours. Wow. I cannot do that. Yeah. And I'm not going to all of a sudden be able to do that after chugging along for 20 years, right? Now, potentially, I can learn how to change my voice so that it's not as humorous and light, but I don't think I'm going to learn how to free write with abandon, right? It's not in my nature. And so part of becoming a professional writer is that self-reflection of knowing who you are, what your skills are, where your strengths and weaknesses are, At least that's how I look at it.
No, I agree. So you're not a plotter. Do you, before you start, what starts you on the book? Is it character? Is it setting? Is it the situation? What's
sure. Yeah. Because I'm mostly thinking series and cozy series. So the new one that I'm shopping around, which isn't written, by the way, I've done a good chunk of work on it, and now I'm shopping it to hopefully sell it, and then I'll finish it. I said I wanted to do something intergenerational. Was one of the things, right? So we know that cozy authors are somewhere between 50 and 65, 70 years old, right? At least that's what they tell us. I'm on social media, I'm on the TikToks, I'm seeing a lot of cozy mystery authors coming to cozy when they're 30. That's when I came to cozy. I came to cozy in my late 20s, right? So I think you come to it at a certain age and maybe you stick with it, right? So I know that there's younger readers coming in. And by younger, I just mean not 60 or 70. Right? I'm saying they're early 30s, right? So I wanted to write an intergenerational story. So that was the first thing. And I said, oh, I know. One, it had to be in South Florida because it had to be Latinas in the lead role. That was a given. Those are knowns, right?
Right.
My first series was written as Miami as the backdrop. I made a fictional neighborhood village within Miami, which was really kind of like a combination of 3 or 4 that actually exist here. But it still had Miami place names that people could recognize. So I said, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to make a completely imaginary town. Done. Right? It's still going to be a coastal town. It's still going to be in South Florida. I'm going to have intergenerational. And then I said, okay. It came to me. It's the 3 Marias. It's the grandmother, the daughter, and the granddaughter. So the grandmother is Gen X, the daughter is millennial, and the granddaughter is Z, okay? And so how do they relate and what different skills do they bring? What part of the amateur sleuth are they going to bring, right? And so I said, okay, I've got this. And then I had to give myself something that I was going to be interested in. So in the case of Caribbean Kitchen Mystery Series, my my cultural anthropologist was interested in the Caribbean. So, because that's where my interest is, the African diaspora, the Caribbean diaspora in the islands. And so I chose that because I knew I could research that and always be delighted and engaged, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that was the win for me. So what was going to be the win for me in this new project that I'm working on, right? Well, I came up with a great idea beyond the intergenerational. The town is founded by a pirate, slightly androgynous. Turns out she is a woman, and she would help women escape situations in the island. She's a pirate. She would bring them on board. She would help them escape whatever bad situation they were in. They would hide out. The nuns would help them hide out because there's some nuns in this story, and the nuns have all the secret to everybody in the whole town, which
Mm-hmm.
is great as mystery writer. Come on. So they would do that. And then after the coast was clear, they would then end up at this, basically, it's like a medicine woman, like a hospital medicine woman. It gets labeled that it was women of ill repute, which isn't the case. But so then this whole house is imbued with this history of all these women's stories and so forth. Now, in the time that I'm writing this, my main character has, she runs a botanica out of there. So basically a metaphysical shop, right?
Okay.
And she can communicate through the shop with this pirate, right?
Wow.
Not in words, not like, go do this, more vague than that, because I'm not that literal. Like, do ghosts exist? Sure, but I'm not engaging with them. You know what?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
deny that they exist, but I'm also not going to go running into the haunted house. I'll just say that. So yeah, I have my Gen X main character has a tattoo of the pirate, and when something is not right, the tattoo itches. And so then
Oh,
she says,
wow.
"Okay, what are you telling me? What should I be looking at?" And talking about diverse cast, I've filled the whole town with a whole bunch of people who like really are like who I see in my everyday life, because I think if you really look around, again, if you live in a city, if you live in a big town, there's no way it's all of one thing.
Oh,
It
no.
rarely
Yeah.
is. It rarely is.
Yeah.
So, but the great thing is that in a cozy mystery, when you have that community, you get to distill those characters down into a really tight circle of quirky and fun people. So yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to enjoy writing it. You know what I mean?
Yes, no, I think I love it. I love the itchy tattoo. I think that's a
Right.
fabulous way of getting messages. And I love your enthusiasm as you talk about your writing and as you talk about other things. And I also have been privileged to spend time with you and know of your enthusiasm for Sisters in Crime. So let's talk about the upcoming year. We don't know at the end of this term. We'll do a recap episode a year from now.
Yeah.
So we'll know what happened. You never know what happens in the world or anything else. But talk to me about, because Sisters in Crime is going into 40, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm super excited about that. I will not be it'll be several presidents who will be on this 40th celebration tour. But I get to start the 40th anniversary celebration at least. And I'm really excited. We will be putting, we're asking some people to join us to start getting committees and task force. And there's going to be some wonderful small projects happening along the way that will hopefully culminate in a large project at the end, which, fingers crossed, I hope it's a documentary film.
Mm.
So fingers crossed, right? And a documentary film would be so exciting because that's something that we can share beyond Sisters in Crime membership, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a documentary film is not Ken Burns' 12-part series. I'm not talking about that, folks. I'm talking about maybe something that's maybe 10 to 15 minutes long that really goes through the timeline of what Sisters in Crime has meant, does mean, and continues to work towards, which is our advocacy, because we are founded in advocacy. And people say, what in the world is that? We're going to tell you, and we're going to let you know all the things we've done along the way. And also, I will tell you that education is advocacy too. So all of our programming that we do, all of our webinars, all of our writing craft, all of those things, that is also advocacy, because the more you know, the better you're going to be as a writer, the better equipped you're going to be to advocate for yourself in the publishing world and advocate for others in the publishing world. Because you're not alone in this, and you never are. You should, be thinking about who we are as a community of writers. Right? And we want to share those stories. We're going to share those stories. Be on the lookout for it. It's going to start small, probably on social media. You're going to start to see some posts with the big 40 on there. But there's going to be several small projects like that, and hopefully, we'll finish with something that we can share with libraries to put in archives, something that we share with public television so they know who we are, universities. Writing programs. There's so many writing programs out there that have been so heavily focused on, literature and classic and that kind of thing that, but wait, there's popular fiction. Popular fiction is valid for so many reasons. Of course it deserves your time. Of course it deserves your money. And yeah, I know there's a lot of, low residency MFA programs out there that focus on popular fiction. We want them to know about us too. Yeah. We don't want a crime fiction writer out there to feel that they are out there alone having to forge this path on their own. No, we are forging the path all together. That's what our founders did. That's what every board member and president and executive director of Sisters in Crime has done. We're forging this path for all of us.
Yeah, I love that. That's inspirational. It's aspirational, but it's also truth. It's distilling it down to what's the truth about the organization and why it's important for folks to find an organization, find places. And Sisters in Crime is where writers belong. You are welcome. No matter where you are in your journey, you are welcome.
No matter what your publishing path is, you are welcome.
Yes.
And I also want to say you're welcome no matter what subgenre that you're writing in here. We were this other day, I'm friends with people who write noir, very different than people who write cozies, romantic suspense, police procedurals, there's so many capers.
Yeah.
There's we have we are wonderful menagerie of writers here. Join us.
Yes, do join us. Well, Raquel, I feel like that's a great place to leave us and in what's going to be a continuing conversation over the course of the next year, which is so exciting. And I look forward to working with you. And thank you so much for being willing to serve as president of Sisters in Crime.
An honor. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. Sisters in Crime is about community. We were founded to advocate for women crime writers, and we continue that mission by fighting for equity in the crime writing community. Sisters in Crime is an international, inclusive organization for all who write and love crime fiction, mystery, thrillers, and suspense. Join us at sistersincrime.org and make sure you subscribe to this podcast.